Real quick before the video starts, guys, I would like to say this is edited on Share Factory, which is an app on the PS5, so the overall quality isn't going to be as great. We're also not using a script, so everything here is my honest thoughts, and we're not coming off of a script or anything, so if I mess up or if I stutter, that's probably why. So yeah, without further ado, thank you for watching and I hope you enjoy. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm RevPGs and today we're doing something different, and as promised we are finally reviewing games. The first review we're going to be doing today is a review of Honkai Star Rail version 2.5. I've got a lot of thoughts to share with you guys, mostly negative, some positive though. Negative mainly being the story, positive being the characters and stuff. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. If I had to describe the story of Honkai Star Rail 2.5 in 2 words, it would be terrible pacing. Reason being is because the pacing is absolutely abysmal in this update. You go from, in the first part of the new arc, at the end of that update, the previous update, you were inside of the Shackling prison, you were trapped, and you were like, oh no, fuck, we're trapped. And we were expecting maybe for us to break out of the prison ourselves. Maybe I missed some context, I don't think I did. But from what I can tell, we don't really know anything about what happened in between then. I would have preferred for us to stay in the prison while all of these events were going on and get some context behind some other things, maybe alluding to some other fact, maybe some other plot point. But no, we're just told, oh, we escaped right after, because the Cloud Knights, I believe it was, they said, came to help us. So basically, instead of, explaining things nicely or showing us what happened, they just said what happened. Another thing I didn't like was the villain. The villain, he was meant to be this scary guy, but the design was not scary in the slightest. His monster design was just a big wolf guy, and his human design was just a big old guy. Not imposing in the slightest, not scary in the slightest, and honestly, I was pretty disappointed with how everything ended. I'm not going to fully spoil everything, but I will say the way they revealed at the end that Ting Yun is still alive was absolutely stupid. Not because they did it badly, but because, poorly, but because they had a live stream beforehand. And in this live stream, they showed a little snippet, and they said, "Oh yeah, Ting Yun is alive somewhere. Maybe we'll find her one day." That's pretty much what they said, and they said Ting Yun will have a 5-star form. So it's like, are you expecting us to be like, "Whoa, what a big plot twist at the end of this massive"? Well, I wouldn't say massive, but it's like a filler arc leading into the next big arc of the Xianzhou. And they're expecting us to be surprised that she's still alive when they tease the fact that she's still alive. I don't understand why they did it that way. I did think, though, that the characters were really interesting. Not their enemy characters, but characters like Zhao Kui, I can't pronounce his name, and Fei Xiao. I think they had some really good story arcs. Ling Shi had a good story arc, but it wasn't really, as out there as the other stories. I mean, the ending was quite sad in terms of, obviously the dude loses his eyesight, and obviously Ling Shi, you learn that she's been exiled, well, kind of exiled, and some other things happened. Fei Xiao, she's like dealing with the fact that she's half Foxian and something else, which, I'm not going to fully spoil it, but you could probably guess. But yeah, there were some good story aspects, it's just the way they paced things and everything was portrayed. That kind of just made the story seem rushed and a bit boring in places. The dialogue is way too dragged out, but rushed at the same time, if that makes any sense. It seemed like instead of explaining the story well and presenting it well, they would rather make the story seem longer by pacing things out in a way that, like, the dialogue is long, but the story itself could be wrapped up in a 40-minute quest. That's how bad it was. I remember live streaming it and wanting to just switch off my brain the whole entire time. I did like the cutscenes, as you can see on the screen right now, one's playing. They were really high quality. which we'll talk about that more later on. But yeah, that's how I think the story kind of went, and the main reason I dislike this patch is because of the story. I rate the story about a 4 out of 10 for this patch, and again, I did say I didn't like the Penacony story, the ending to Penacony. I thought that was cheap as well. If they carry on with this type of storytelling where it's rushed and nothing matters in the end, the ending's just some bullshit that no one gives a shit about, and everything's predictable and the pacing is terrible, I will honestly quit the game, because for me, a game like this has to have a good story. Who plays a gacha game because of the gameplay? Like, usually it's like rinse and repeat. The story is what makes a gacha game for me, and the characters, but it's got the characters but not the story. With gameplay, there's not too much to talk about, mainly being because with every gacha game update, especially with hoyoverse, if it's story focused or a filler arc, mainly the gameplay is going to be talking to NPCs, exploring a new area, or there's not any gameplay whatsoever, it's just talking to the NPCs, as I said. There is a boss in this new quest, there's a few new enemies as well to fight, so that's cool. Obviously you've got your endgame refresh, but that's not anything due to the update. If there was any updates on a new endgame mode, I'll be speaking about those, but not for today. I did like the puzzles, but puzzles are a thing I've always liked in gacha games, especially the puzzles in Genshin and the TV world puzzles in Zenless. The one thing I will say is I did like the new map, but of course with the new map it's easy to explore, maybe a bit too easy, there's not too much to do. You've got your endgame content, but that's not really anything to do with updates. The new boss was cool, but we'll be giving our thoughts on that a bit later. Obviously, new abilities for characters to use during exploration, but other than that, there's not really much to speak about with gameplay, so we'll wrap it up here.
I'm gonna use you.
I know most people might be questioning why I've put this in a separate section, since it does come under the criteria of gameplay, but I wanted to include it separately. First of all, the events, I can't really fully speak about that because we haven't gotten every event yet. This is an early on review. Next time I do a review, it will be fully in depth, but I wanted to get this video out. The events so far are pretty good though. The combat, obviously pretty normal with normal enemies. The two new bosses though, quite cool. I enjoyed the facial boss especially. The Hule one, it's kind of alright. But yeah, you're not really going to be expecting way too much with bosses. When you first experience them, they're quite fun, they're unpredictable, but once you start to fight them multiple times, it gets repetitive. So I'll give the bosses and the events so far a 7 out of 10. Overall, I think Honkai Star version 2.5 is pretty mediocre. It's not doing anything special, and it's not the worst. The story is the worst aspect overall. I really like the characters, especially Fei Xiao's gameplay. Ling She is pretty much just an upgraded Gallagher, so there's not too much to say there. There's not anything else I can really add to that because I haven't got Moza, and there's not any new characters that have done anything especially new other than Fei Xiao, since she's a follow-up attack unit that is also a main DPS unit that does a shit ton of damage. But yeah, I didn't like the story, I liked the characters, the gameplay is okay, the bosses are fun, but overall it just seemed a bit too boring and bland for Honkai Star Rail. If it was something like Genshin, I wouldn't have minded as much, and I know it's pretty sad to admit that, but that's just how it is for Genshin. But I expected a bit more from this update, but we didn't get what we needed, I believe. So yeah, my final thoughts and my final opinion on this game is it's shaping up to not be the greatest, so I'll give Honkai Star Rail version 2.5 a 5 out of 10 to fit with a 2.5. Thanks for watching.